Mohit today sent me a very interesting video. I think it's very, very relevant to where we are in terms of, the whole GenAI rat race, if you will. And if you could just play that, then I'll...
So I'm launching a new startup. So what does your company do? We're a paradigm-shifting, next-gen disruptor on the cutting edge of AI and cloud computing. I don't know what that means. Basically, we capture synergies between deep learning, quantum frameworks, and hyper-personalized automation. Does that mean something to people? It's all about providing holistic end-to-end solutions that optimize workflows and enhance decision-making possibilities. Okay. So how do you do that? First, we prioritize frictionless integration and seamless connection across verticals. But what do you do? Really just finding the crossroads between innovation and transformation. What does your company make? Do you make something? We leverage SaaS and machine learning to disrupt traditional markets. Are you selling something? What do you sell? We're all about revolutionizing fintech through a cloud-native ecosystem by harnessing big data and combining it with NLP. Oh my God. Really, we're just driving a holistic digital transformation at scale and doing things in a more modern way. Stop! Tell me in actual words what your company does. Oh, we're just an exact copy of ChatGPT with a different color scheme and logo. Thank you. Jeez. So is your company making any money? God, no. We're going bankrupt within 6 weeks.
That's it. So when I saw this, it was shocking in multiple ways. And one of the things I thought is maybe even I have started sounding like this to my boss. So therefore you will see a lot of connection between what we just saw and what I'm going to speak. And you will see that, we need to get to the first slide. So, there's a lot of confusion about how do we think about transforming very, very data-rich companies or countries or societies to become AI-first companies, countries, and societies, right? So we wait for the next DeepSeek model, we wait for something else, and we keep thinking, should we do this, should we do this, should we do this? There's no sort of a blueprint on how to do that transformation, right? And that is what is confusing everybody. We have lots of tools, we have lots of point solutions, we are building great startups on one side and research on one side, but there's no blueprint on that transformation, right? So that is what I'll talk about, especially in the context of what I call ecosystem as products. Yeah? So let's start with the products themselves. How are the products evolving and where are we going with them? So if I think about it, in the last few decades, we have built what we call physical products, right? Physical products from furnitures to cars to airplanes. And then we have built a lot of digital products, right? YouTube to ChatGPT. There is no physical aspect to it. Everything is digital to digital. And now we are building what we call hybrid products, which are really, if you think about Ola, Uber, or anything is now becoming more and more hybrid, right? Digital, physical. Banking is hybrid. Education will be hybrid, right? Physical content, digital, labs, whatever, healthcare, manufacturing. We are all now moving towards phygital products that Professor Mashelkar talked about. And if I think about what makes a great product, right, obviously it should scale at a very large level. Google has scale, ChatGPT has to scale, every other product has to scale. What scale means in a digital product is different, physical product is different, and phygital product is different. But the idea of scale is important, the idea of interface is important. We are going to see a lot more beautiful natural interfaces like speech-enabled, sign languages in Zoom calls, for example, right? Inclusion and all of that, multiple languages, all the LLM work going on across languages in the country and all that. And then obviously they have to be intelligent, otherwise, nobody will use them. So, the right cab, the right person, the right recommendation and all of that. And now we're heading in the world of instantaneous. Even if our ChatGPT output is delayed by 3 seconds because it is thinking, we get very, anxious. So we are now working with, let's say quick commerce or, 30-minute pizza delivery or instant loan, and all that is now instantaneous, right? So we are dealing with real-time decisions. And what is missing in my mind is what I call an integrated product, right? If I look at airline industry, it's end-to-end integrated, and it is amazing that it is so integrated. I can book anywhere, whatever, the whole journey is very beautiful, right? So this is where we have to go, and this is what I'll talk about, but this is what we have achieved in a bottom-up fashion so far, and we are making progress. And if I look at this slide, again going back to the evolution of products from an intelligence perspective. So the first generation products were intelligent based on a rule engine, right? If the light outside is high, increase the brightness of the screen, right? Those kind of intelligence. So this is what we call the programmed intelligence, is what the first generation product looked like. Then came the second generation product. Last 20 years we have learned the art of using a lot of feedback data to keep improving the product over time. And this you can do with digital products a lot because you can keep doing it, right? So we will call it crouch intelligence, because unless we use these products, they will not become better, right? So every time YouTube gives you a recommendation and you don't click on it and many people don't click on it, then YouTube knows that this was not the best recommendation, right? Things like that. So that is what we have learned in the last 20 years. Now tell me, where are we going in the next 20 years? How will the definition of a product evolve? Yes, please.
Something which is more personalized to the user.
Okay. Hyper-personalized, we talked about that, right? Yes. Personalization is a product feature, right? ChatGPT is a technology. Product, not product feature. Any other thoughts? How is our idea of a product evolving? It won't be an incremental version of this, right? Sorry?
Anything you can deliver value,
Right.
it can become a product, but how do you
Can become a
package it?
product, right? Yeah. So I can say this table is also a product, this building is also a product, and the city of Mumbai is also a product. Everything is delivering value at the right level of abstraction. So, we are heading now towards what we call very complex ecosystems as products. So for me, smart city is a product, right? And now you can imagine we have built all the components. We have cameras everywhere, we have sensors everywhere, we have traffic lights everywhere, we have telecom everywhere, we have all the components. Now we are building the next level product, which is a smart city, right? What does that mean, and so on. And we are not ready for it in the sense that our IT systems and thinking and our AI systems and thinking is not ready for what does it mean to think about an operating system for a smart city. Right? And that's what we'll talk about. So these are, think of the things we are using already. Right? If you look at telecom, don't think of a cell phone as a product anymore. Think of not just a cell tower as a product, but the entire telecom network is a product. Right? Similarly, in a refinery or a manufacturing unit, the whole thing, all the way from purchasing crude on one side to delivering, raw material on one side and everything in between, is a single product. We keep thinking, oh, no, jet fuel is a product, right? But the refinery itself and before and after is the whole product. If I look at agriculture, we may think that, oh, I'm a drone startup, I build fertilizers, I have a supply chain startup, I do this with AI. But if I don't put all this together, we want agriculture ecosystem as a whole for a state as a single product. So we are now ready to think top-down about what a product is. And really that's what my job is to think about the 5 different verticals that Reliance has and think about how to think each one as a coherent unit as opposed to a collection of ideas and building blocks, right? So what makes these complex? Let's compare it to Google search, for example. So one is entity complexity. In search, you may have an ad, a query, and a page as 3 types of entities, right? Maybe a user, if you are logged in, right? But in the world of complex systems, we have a very wide hundreds of entity types, right? Like in telecom, you might be dealing with a customer, a tower, a grid, a SIM card, a guy on the ground, right? A phone of all types. So the degree of complexity from diversity of entities is one kind of complexity. Then the degree of interactions. You are not dealing with 2 interactions in Google, right? Query to send to links, query to ads. 2 interactions, 20,000 people, 20 years. We have changed the human civilization, but now we are heading into a very different world where we are dealing with all kinds of interactions, right? In a retail world, you have everything going on, right? Right now, in Amazon, there are a million things going on, right? Of all types. Somebody is searching, somebody is returning, somebody is writing a review, somebody is recommending something, somebody is sending an ad, somebody is delivering a packet, somebody is doing warehouse management. All this is happening simultaneously in a complex system. Do you feel it? Right? That's how complex these things are, right? Data complexity. We're not dealing with, text, video, and image and 3 types of data. We're dealing with all kinds of data. So if you look at healthcare, you may be dealing with X-ray, MRI, blood report, ECG, all kinds of data at the same time. Your electronic health record is made up of 20 types of data from a data science perspective, right? Gene sequences and all that, right? If I look at metrics, metrics complexity. So if I think about, Google's metrics, let's say click-through rate, YouTube metrics, Gmail metrics, they're all independent of each other, right? Spam and all that. But if I look at a complex system, your operational metrics will affect your customer experience, will affect your business metrics, will also affect your sustainability metrics, right? So metrics are not independent anymore. You cannot see one dashboard in isolation of another dashboard. You have to see them together and see what is the relationship. And finally, decision complexity. We are not making few decisions like search decision and ad decision. We are making hundreds of decisions at the same time, right? Routing, pricing, all kinds of decisions at the same time. And today I'll talk about workflow complexity. And this is something I was telling Satya this morning, that most of AI companies that have pioneered the world of AI have been what we call point solution companies. Like a search engine is a point solution. You give me one thing, I'll call an API, get something. The complexity is behind all that. It's a very 2 API system. These companies, Googles of the world, have never had to think about processes, complex processes. So the AI world has never evolved from building good, deep, single API solutions like ChatGPT or search engine versus building a process. So manufacturing industry, all other industries, retail and all that, they are process industries. They are not few API call industries, right? There's a process. Output of one is an input of another. So that kind of AI thinking has not evolved. We have built great single point solutions, but we have not thought about process engineering. So this is where we'll talk about workflows and the workflow mindset. Alright, so now we understand that we are heading into a new world. How do I tame this? How do I think about it in a very simple way? So I'm going to talk about 2 big ideas, systems and workflows. And let's talk about airline industry. What are the systems in an airline industry? So there is a system for how to book a flight. There is a system for how to enter the airport. There is a system for baggage. There is a system for food delivery to aircraft. There is a system of pilot training or a system for managing aircraft. These are well-defined SOPs, and these are systems that make up the airline industry. Now, what is a workflow in an airline industry? A workflow is one passenger going through the entire experience of traveling is one workflow. And that passenger needs all the systems, directly or indirectly, to get the whole thing done. That is the workflow. So we will talk about how we need 2 types of thinking to build these complex ecosystems, right? So let's talk about the generic systems in any ecosystem. Now I'll be very domain agnostic. All these are needed by all industries, right? So the first is what we call system of sensors, which is anything that collects data is a sensor, including the physical sensor, the COVID test, the blood test, everything. And also the logging of every activity on a website or an app is also a sensor, right? So anything that is collecting data is a sensor. Then you have a system of records. Today we confuse it with a data lake or whatever else, right? But really what you have to store is the static knowledge of the enterprise. Where are all my cell towers at their XY coordinates? Dynamic knowledge of the enterprise, which is every call that has ever been made, the whole call gets recorded. All the annotations, features I have engineered behind the scenes, all the decisions I have taken, all the AI outputs of all the models that I have used, all the metrics, all the alarms, all the feedback, everything is data, right? So we need a proper system of records. We cannot say Databricks will do it or Snowflakes will do it. It's not about the technology, it's about domain architecture of system of records of that domain. Technology can change, right? Then the system of intelligence. So Google search and ads, two systems were driving the whole thing for a long time. Now we are talking about hundreds of AI models sitting in different workflows that are driving the whole thing. So you are now talking about hundreds of AI models, and each one has a life cycle, right? How do you design, build, train, store, deploy, scale, all of that, right? So how do we think about that? System of interactions, these are the apps, the user interaction with the ecosystem. So when I book a ticket on yatra.com, when I print my boarding pass on a kiosk, right? When I do DigiYatra, they are all system of interactions in the same ecosystem, right? So how do we think about that? And then system of operations, things that are happening on the ground, how do we optimize those things, right? The campaigns, and these could be digital or physical actions. A search result is also operation, and delivery is also operation, right? So one is the digital, one is the physical operation. And then you have a system of integration. This is what is missing, right? So we know how to build cells, tissues, and organs. We now have to build the body. How do all these systems work together, right? And this is the real pain point. We have to first solve for integration now and go backward and say, now let me start improving. And this is the philosophy that will kind of follow, right? So in retail, for example, what are the sensors, right? So anytime, knowledge sensor, anytime a new product is added to a catalog, anytime a new store is added to your store, somebody has to enter the metadata of the whole thing, right? A new customer joins the system. Then you have process sensors, right? Anybody that a search or an order or a payment or a customer care call, these are things that happen on a daily basis. We have to keep logging them. These are my sensors. Then I have feedback, right? Product feedback, this feedback, service feedback. Anytime I do a recommendation, you take it or not take it is also feedback, right? Anytime I send a campaign, you click it, not click it is also feedback. So how do we think about knowledge, process, and feedback sensors in any domain? This is just one example, but generally this is a framework to think about. How do we be exhaustive about it? How do we standardize everything? Because one vendor may say one vendor may say customer, one vendor may say user, somebody may say user ID. The same data element may have different names in different customer, in different vendor products, right? So how do we standardize, like we have standardized 3G, 4G, how do we standardize retail, how do we standardize manufacturing? And the work is going on. Whichever fields, domains have been standardized, they are working there, right? And how do we do this in real time? System of records. So again, we store static knowledge about the domain, like product catalog, customer onboarding data, all the transactions and sensors. Then we build features in the middle. Where did that go? That also goes in system of records. All the AI outputs of all the models, right? I gave this recommendation to this customer as a recommendation engine output, and then decision. I sent this campaign to that customer. On that day, this was the homepage of this customer, right? So all that decision and all the metrics we store. So let me show you one example of feature engineering. Feature store is a very important part of the whole pipeline. Just to give you an example, so imagine I have transaction data and I have all the sensors in terms of feedback and everything. And what do? We build understanding of every entity in the ecosystem, right? How is my PIN code doing with respect to all the products? How is my customer doing with respect to all the products? How is my brand doing with respect to different markets and PIN codes? So this is a domain exercise which says in the domain of retail, how do we think about an exhaustive feature store, and then how do we build one, right? So for example, customer, I want to be able to tell that this customer likes these kind of products, this customer likes these brands in that category shirt, and he likes these kind of attributes in this category. How do I build this automatically? Because this is going to be used by either an agentic workflow later or marketing campaigns or something else in the future, right? So end-to-end thinking. Again, how do we think about it exhaustively and standardized? Now, how do I use that information, right? Even today, if you go to Myntra or Ajio, we have not personalized your search, for example. So imagine customer A likes men's shirt, Highlander, boost and fit. Customer B, men's shirt, arrow, brown, formal. If this guy searches for men's shirt, I should show different results, and if this guy searches for men's shirt, I should show different results. This is very obvious and simple. Netflix has done it, Amazon has done it. This is a normal thing now and it should be done. But I want to show you the connection between the three things, right? The transaction data, the search history leads to feature lake of profiling, leads to search personalization, right? So how do we think workflows in retail? It's not about, oh, this is great, somebody does it. It's about workflows, right? How do we think about the workflow? What are the operations in retail? So we understand there are customer operations, there are warehouse operations, store operations, supply chain operations. So in any domain, we have to be able to write down the menu of operations, sensors, AI models and all, right? Again, how do we make them work with the real time? And now system of integration. So this is very interesting that at the Reliance level, let's say I have one business that does grocery, so I can build your grocery profile. Another business is digital, we sell digital gadgets or fashion products. These are three different businesses within the retail umbrella. But now, can I combine all this because the ID is the same? I get a retail 360 of a customer. And by the way, we also have a media business, right? We have a song, we have a movie, we have TV. Can I now combine all of that to create your media 360? And can I combine all that to create your customer 360? So now what do I know? I know, that the guy who listens to jazz music also likes Nike shoes for running, right? So how do I make that connection? Because the customer is still the same, but we see different views of the same customer. But in this 360, really 360 view, we should be able to see the same customer in multiple ways. Yeah? All right. So now let's go to workflows. Right? So we understand that we need to build all these 5 systems. What they mean in different domains will be different. Now workflows, so what we've done, we've looked at many industries and we have classified workflows into 7-8 types of workflows. So what is your execution workflows, right? Whenever somebody ordered a product, these are the 5 things that should happen, right? So the SOPs of normal behavior of an ecosystem, what does that look like? Then we have what I call exception workflows. Exceptions happen all the time. Flights are delayed, pilot didn't come, whatever, right? The weather is bad, landing is not possible, cell tower is down, whatever it may be, right? So can you predict ahead of time and then can you intervene before is the intelligence. But if you only react afterwards, then you're not building an intelligent system, right? So part failures in a refinery, if you don't predict ahead of time and order, your refinery shut down for a month and you are making like trillions of dollars of loss, right? So predicting and intervening in exception. Expansion workflows, right? What product feature should I add to my product? What market segment should I go after? What customers to acquire? What, where should I put my next cell tower or a cloud kitchen or a cold, whatever, storage, right? Efficiency workflows. How do I even measure the efficiency of Ola, Uber, or Swiggy, Zomato, or all my operational businesses, aircrafts and travel, and say these are the inefficient parts of my system. I'm proactively measuring it and then figuring out what to do, right? And then how do you explain all the 3 things? And finally, we'll talk about evolution workflows. You have hundreds of models. When do you know which model has to be triggered to be repeated, right? And the whole evolution of the enterprise will happen because your AI models are sort of evolving. Yeah? So if I look at examples of expansion workflows, right? New customer acquisition, right? Infrastructure growth. Where should I put the next cell tower? Market expansion. Should I go to Australia and start Ola services, right? Why Australia? New product features, new content in a Netflix world. These are all expansion, new assortment of products, right? Similarly, efficiency workflow examples, inventory optimization, pricing, resource, routing, scheduling, process optimization. These are all examples of how do you keep improving your system once you have built one. And human body also uses all these. I'm not just talking about ecosystem. Our body uses exactly very similar things. We have a system of sensors, we have a system of intelligence, we have all these systems, right, all the time. And these workflows are also running all the time. So now I'll talk about 4 or 5 types of AI-human relationships, right? So you've heard of these terms, and some of them I have added. So assistive intelligence, where human plays a very important role. Like if you want to create a marketing campaign, you can ask ChatGPT and it will do one. Then augmented intelligence, where human and AI have to work together. You can't allow AI to take over completely. Then you have autonomous intelligence, where you, like in cars, right, autonomous vehicles, you need a lot more control to AI with very little human interaction. Then I will call something called proactive intelligence, where output of one AI model drives another AI, right? So there is no human in the loop, and then we talk about overall ecosystem. All right. So assisted intelligence. So imagine, you have a farmer making a call and saying what to do. So we need AI models, we need an AI expert, we need the domain knowledge of agriculture, which crop, which fertilizer and all that. We need the individual farmer's profile, where you are, GPS. This is not enough. We also need to know what is the satellite data saying, soil data saying, and weather data saying about your soil today. And then we need to be able to give information, content in your language, how to apply this pesticide, and also deliver pesticide to you, right? Now this part of it, we call it personalization. And this part we call contextualization. Because your farm is the same, but the weather is changing every day, right? So in the context of, right? So on. But the bigger message here is, especially to data science type people, we keep thinking about AI models. That is not the unit. The unit is a workflow. Workflow is the unit. AI sits within the workflow. That is the most important message. And if I show you, I have a system of sensors on that side. I have a system of operations here. I have a system of records, farmer profile and knowledge. And I have a system of intelligence that does all these things. You see? So workflow thinking is more important than model thinking. That's it. Okay. Augmented intelligence. So we built another system for diagnosis of people using AI and all that. So you have some symptoms. You build a preclinical diagnosis and say, oh, do you also have rashes? Do you also have this? How high is the fever and all that? And now, so AI doctor will do the diagnosis and a conversation with the patient, but we need a physical doctor to verify all this. This is where the augmented thing comes, right? So AI cannot take over a critical domain like healthcare. And now if you say, okay, AI will then say, okay, therefore, what is the investigation to do? AI doctor will approve. Then reports are uploaded and AI will also produce the final diagnosis. Again, a doctor will approve. And then AI will also create a prescription. Again, a doctor will approve. So wherever there is a human sitting as a curator of the output of the AI, that is what I call augmented intelligence. So now, the new role for human experts, every domain, is we are going to become curators, not creators. That is a very important transition that a lot of people on the ground are getting very upset about. If what does the radiologist do anymore? He doesn't look at the raw data directly. He only looks at the output of an AI system and says this is okay, this is not okay. So he's a curator now, he's not a creator. What about a journalist in a news world? Journalist will say, hey, there's a flood event, here are the parameters, write a story. And what does the journalist do? He will curate the story that has come from AI. In every world, AI will sit between data and human expert, and our role will be curators, right? Same thing in coding. We are not going to code. We are going to curate the code coming out of AI, right? Now this opens up a very interesting philosophy question. What will humans do? Should we teach coding and all that? It's a very important question. This was asked in Dubai with OpenStack CEO answered it very nicely. He said, look, coding jobs are going. What does it really mean is, in the future, the guy who is an expert coder is the guy who will be able to curate the AI generated code. A junior programmer will not be able to curate an AI generated code. So it's not that we are not going to need coders anymore, but we are going to need very, very good coders to be able to play the role of a curator of an AI code. Because that's the new job skill. We're going to call it software curator, not software engineer. And that guy will have to be extremely good. Now here is the catch-22. If we are not going to need enough of those people in the future, what will happen to our education system? Kids will stop doing computer science, already started, right? Less and less people will get into coding. And maybe, in one of the posts I wrote, we could be the last generation of programmers, for example, or musicians, or editors, or journalists. Because as you give away more and more skills to AI, what will happen? less and less people will be interested in it, and then we start to do other things, and then the skill set of future humans in those domains will reduce. So there's no A.R. Rahman to tell you that this is how to do prompt engineering to generate a beautiful music. That guy is missing now, right? And that is the bigger problem to think about from a human resource perspective. Autonomous intelligence, now imagine, crimes are happening all the time. Today what happens, we have cameras everywhere. Crime has happened already. Somebody reported, not reported. Then the police goes and looks at the camera. It's a reactive thing. What if AI can be continuously monitoring all the cameras in a city, detect action, normal and all that, raise an alarm on the camera, we can put an alarm right away that there's a harmful action going on, detect faces using Aadhaar and whatever we do with digital and all that, and identify and notify authority, notify family. So the idea is, even if there is some degree of error and some violation of privacy, security is more important than privacy, can we build systems? Today we have, one startup could do that, one startup could do that, one startup could do that. We can all come together to create a smart city safety solution. So unless we think top down and say, no, I do only face detection well, I don't do anything else. I do only something well, I don't do that. Then we will not create a full solution. Same thing with all the workflows we talked about. And now this is the new programming paradigm. The blue things are events, think of them as nouns of the system, and orange things are the functions, think of them as the verbs of the system. So verbs are producing nouns, and nouns are going into other verbs. And we can create any complex diagram like this, and I will show you some more. But how do we go from sensors to actions directly, without a human in the loop, because the stakes are very high, right? That is the new thing. So for example, if my AI system is predicting an imminent heart attack of a person in the top 5 diseases, should I now go find a doctor to curate this, or should I send an ambulance immediately? That judgment we should be able to do, sensor to action. Another example now, proactive intelligence, right? So the idea is, imagine I have created one workflow that says, take a picture of a crop, what is the state, what is the situation, and that's what one company does. Another company says, oh, if it's a water problem, imagine I'm connected to the tube well system of the farmer and automatically turn it on and inform him. If it's a nutrition problem, imagine I'm connected to the supply chain of agriculture also, and drones are there and they are delivering. But today what is happening? There's one startup that does drone delivery, one startup that does satellite data, one startup that does something. What is the missing piece? So I keep telling the PMO that you can create hundreds of startups, but if you don't integrate them, if you don't create workflows around them, nothing will happen. Farmer will do one app for this, one app for this, one app for this. By the time he's done, the crop is dead, right? And then we'll all go for that, right? And what about, why should he even do this? Satellite data could do this, or we can have drones flying around, right? And different startups can build different point solutions, but we need somebody to integrate all this, so that we get so without doing anything, the farmer is getting the whole thing done, 100% automation. So proactive means one workflow ends, triggers another workflow, right? That's how we think about it. So integration mindset is very important. Accuracy will improve over time. Integration is the first thing we have to solve. Last is what I call ecosystem intelligence. So how do we think about it? So can I break down any domain by all the workflows that are needed to solve that domain, right? So how do I collect orders in retail? What does that trigger? One workflow it triggers is demand aggregation and forecasting. Another workflow it triggers is delivery of products, which takes in forecasted demand, current inventory, and then decides from where to deliver what product to which customer and routing. Then I can also trigger a profiling and personalization that will give me that. What is the missing workflow in this? One more workflow is missing. Major workflow that is missing.
Payment?
Huh?
Payment?
Payment is part of orders.
Oh.
Approval, no approval. Approval has killed the whole thing. What is the other part of retail? So I am a store, I am an inventory holder. I need to be able to replenish my inventory also, right? So the whole point is, if I have to develop this top-down thought process, one domain after the other. What is the skill set I'm going to need is to draw this and say this is the system of sensor, this is the system of record, this is the system of that. And if I can define all the workflows and all of that and integrate them, then my retail will run without a human in them. So the role of a human is now building these operating systems is what I call them. Yeah? So this is the operating system mindset. So the next big platforms, B2B platforms, are not just ChatGPT and Agentic, but the operating systems of verticals. Right? That's what it is. So I'll just show you a few things. So why our enterprises are struggling today is because we have created what we call a digital slum in the backend. We have acquired many vendor products. Many startups have come. They have given me many products, right? SAP, ERP, CRM, what have you. And they don't work with each other by design, right? We have no standardization, no interoperability. And we need to go to a digital smart city. That is what an operating system should look like. So the next 5-10 years, we are going to see this trend. Standardization in the domains that are not standardized, integration and standardization, right? And a startup could take up this as a theme. Instead of saying I'm building this point solution or this point solution, why don't we take up operating system thinking as a theme and plug and play components like we plug and play for electricity, right? How do we get there, right? So this is the root cause. And so I have analyzed many companies and looked at through ISP and all my experience. Really in every company, large enterprise, there are workflow thinkers, domain guys, and there are system thinkers, right? IT, AI, and data teams. And the problem is, this is your IIT, these are your IIMs, they don't know how to talk to each other. In fact, they look down upon the other guys. We know, don't tell me what to do. This is a fundamental problem. We are solving the wrong problem, right? Improve accuracy of ChatGPT. The real problem is communication between them. So imagine if I sit with them, create a workflow design, and then I give it to them and say, now create a system. That is the framework we are developing to help true digital transformation in the company. We have identified the core problem, and now we can do this, right? So the operating system mindset is, what are your input events? What are all the things you store about a customer or a store or a bank or a branch? What are all your AI models? What are the knowledge graph? And what are all the decisions you have to produce? So like that, we can keep doing it for every domain. And how do we think about these operating systems as the new? So Satya Nadella says SaaS is dead. I completely agree. But what is born when something is dead? So I call it operating system as a service is the new SaaS. Operating system as a service is the new SaaS. And we need to start moving into domain after domain, whether it is social domain or healthcare domain. Unless we start thinking top down, we will not know what to do with the 1,000 startups. That is the problem. Yeah? So that is the other way to look at everything, and we can do all the things. So let me just close now. This is a complex slide, but the idea is this is what your conscious part of the enterprise is. This is what you currently do. And this is the subconscious part of the enterprise, which is larger. In our systems also, conscious is very little, subconscious is very large. So we standardize all the things, put it through event processing, all the AI models, all the workflows, all the decisions, going back, convert it back to the vendor. So we write connectors on both sides, and we have a storage for everything. And think of this as the system of interaction. These are the system of sensors, intelligence, operations, and records coming together to create an operating system. We can repeat this for every domain once. And so there's a core operating system, there's a domain-centric operating system, and now I have customers for this. So Amazon is a customer for a retail operating system because they are doing exactly the same thing. They're not doing different things. It's just that their databases are different, countries are different, but they are all doing the same thing. Right? So domain-centric, this is the new DOS, I call it domain operating system is the new DOS. And how do we get there? Just a few more slides and then I'll close. So where are enterprises going? Evolution of enterprises, metric maturity, data maturity, feedback maturity, decision maturity, intelligence maturity, and most important, integration maturity. How do we get to can I discover all the data? Can I maintain all the models? Am I collecting all the feedback? Am I using it to improve my business all the time? Right? Am I running an integrated end-to-end workflow, or am I doing download Excel, email Excel, upload Excel. Is that how I'm running? Or I have a full integration. Yeah? So this is our journey looks like. We start with manual to digital. Digital doesn't mean automated. Digital only means Excel instead of paper. But how do we go from there to automated to integrated? Workflows, how do we think about that? What metric am I solving? What decisions I am making for each workflow? Right? What AI models, what features, what data I need? Intelligence workflow. We start with business intelligence, the most useful, useless thing to do. Dashboards. Right? If you look at dashboards all day long, you feel good about it. Somebody produced a dashboard, somebody did that. Then how do we do predictive and reasoning and all that, and proactive to sort of emergent intelligence. This is my next theme that I'm working on. Is called emergent intelligence, right? Not AGI, something more practical. And how should we execute is integration backwards. First we design all the workflows, not implement anything. Then we say now implement each box. Then we improve the models that need to be, then we innovate, and then we go on to the next workflows. Right? So with that, I'll leave you. Thank you for your attention. I think Yes. Yes.
So if you look at that ecosystem, there are point, solution providers.
Yes.
Now, at some point in time, somebody has to take that initiative to start the integration.
Correct.
Now, while we start that integration process, I'm sure there are biggies like Reliance, Amazon, Google's, and likes of other, right? What is someone's core business model today suddenly becomes a feature for them.
Correct.
Maybe, there's a risk. But how do we initiate, if you are a startup, how do we initiate that entire process? Because at the end, they're all enterprises.
Yes.
And that process is not so simple. There's a legal department, there's a procurement department, and there's a whole hierarchy, and probably you rightly mentioned, right? IITs and IIMs, there are two different worlds living in the same organization. That process is not so simple. Somebody has to take initiatives. There are certain sectors like payment, UPI, it has become, the adoption has become very, very fast. So how do we even get started there?
Yeah,
that's my question.
That is the new disruption that has to happen. Somebody has to do it. Now, why would McKinsey's of the world not do it? They have domain knowledge of all domains, but they are not system savvy as much. Right? Why won't Accenture's of the world do it? Because again, for them, selling some service to one bank and another service to some other bank is double the revenue, right? So they don't have an incentive to build an operating system once and for all and start selling that, because they work on hours and all that, right? So therefore, somebody, either a startup or a Google or a Reliance, has to take that initiative to say, look, I understand a new kind of thing called workflows. Google understands a different kind of thing called microservices. Right? These are two different words. Those people have never built anything like this. So they don't know. AI has not evolved to this level yet. Now it is evolving, agentic and all that stuff, right? So what I'm saying is somebody in the middle who understands domain well and who understands systems well has to come together and say, let's build all this for all domains. Railways, smart city, military. I was at the military school. They were also telling use case 1, use case 2, use case 3. As soon as you hear the word use case, remember, or POC and use case, these are like evil words. They will never let you build a platform. Right? It's like saying our table is a use case. I need a table. But the table is not going to build a building, no? So stay away from use case thinking. Start with breadth first. Shallow but breadth. Design all the workflows and events and functions, not implement. And then, get startups to build whatever they are good at. Right? So somebody is good at demand forecasting in retail, bring 5 startups and let them compete with each other for that model. Because the workflow will use the API, startups will provide the models, and whichever is the best model will automatically be. So we are trying to create another framework called the AI marketplace, where anybody can contribute models and workflows are still relevant. It's like replacing your liver with some other liver, the body is still there. Right? So how do we distinguish and decouple these things? Right? So those are some of the big things we have to think about. Yeah? All right, I think we are out of time, but I'll be around and we can have more conversations. Thank you.